You're sitting there right now, watching this video, and you probably won't leave a comment. You won't hit like. You won't share it. And there's actually a psychological reason why over 90% of you do exactly that. We call them lurkers, observers, the silent majority. They're everywhere. On social media, in group chats, online forums, YouTube comments, even in real-life meetings. They're watching, reading, absorbing everything, but never speaking up, never participating. And if you're honest with yourself, you've probably been this person more times than you can count. But here's what's interesting. This isn't just about being shy or lazy. There's actually some deep psychology behind why millions of people choose to stay invisible even when they have something to say. Think about the last time you watched a YouTube video. Did you comment? Probably not. Think about your group chats. How many messages do you send compared to how many you read? The ratio is probably ridiculous. You might read hundreds of messages, but only send 5 or 6. Or think about meetings at work or school. How often do you speak up versus just sitting there taking it all in? This pattern shows up everywhere, and it's not random. There's actually a rule about this called the 1% rule. It says that in most online communities, 1% of people create content, 9% interact with it, and 90% just watch. 90%, that's almost everyone. So if you're part of that 90%, you're not alone. But why does this happen? Why do so many people choose to stay silent? Let's start with the most obvious reason. Fear, but not just any fear, it's called spotlight anxiety. When you post something, comment something, or speak up in a group, you're putting yourself in the spotlight. And our brains are wired to see the spotlight as dangerous. Back in the day, standing out from the group could get you killed. Seriously. If you said something the tribe didn't like, you could get kicked out, and being alone in the wild meant death. So our brains learned to keep us safe by keeping us quiet. Even though we're not running from lions anymore, that fear is still there. When you think about commenting on a video, your brain starts asking questions. What if people think I'm stupid? What if I get attacked? What if someone makes fun of me? What if I'm wrong? These questions create anxiety, and the easiest way to avoid that anxiety is to just not participate. Stay invisible. Stay safe. But there's more to it than just fear. There's also something called the diffusion of responsibility. This is a psychology concept that explains why people are less likely to take action when they're in a group. Basically, when there are lots of other people around, your brain thinks someone else will do it. Someone else will comment. Someone else will answer that question. Someone else will speak up in the meeting, so you don't have to. And since everyone is thinking the same thing, nobody does anything. This is why you'll see a YouTube video with millions of views, but only a few thousand comments. Everyone watching thinks their comment doesn't matter because there are already so many other people watching. Why would my voice make a difference? But here's the twist. If everyone thinks that way, then the only voices we hear are from the small percentage of people who don't think that way. And those people aren't always the most informed or the most thoughtful. They're just the loudest. Now let's talk about something called the imposter syndrome effect. A lot of people don't participate because they feel like they're not qualified enough. They look at other people's comments or posts and think those people sound smarter, more informed, more experienced. So they tell themselves they have nothing valuable to add. Even if they have a thought or opinion, they dismiss it. They think it's too basic, too obvious, or too stupid to share. But here's what's funny. Research shows that people who actually know a lot about a topic are often the quietest. It's called the expert blind spot. Experts assume that what they know is common knowledge, so they don't bother sharing it. Meanwhile, people who know just a little bit are super confident and loud about it. This creates a weird situation where the people with the most valuable things to say are silent, and the people with the least valuable things to say won't shut up. There's also a comfort in observation. When you're just watching, you're in control. You can leave anytime. You can scroll past anything you don't like. You don't owe anyone anything. But the moment you participate, you create a connection. You create an expectation. If you comment on something, you might feel obligated to check back and see if anyone replied. If you post something, you might feel anxious waiting for reactions. Participation creates emotional investment, and a lot of people just don't want that. They want to consume content on their own terms without any strings attached. Let's not forget about perfectionism. Some people don't participate because they can't figure out the perfect thing to say. They start typing a comment, then delete it. They rewrite it 5 times. They overthink every word. And eventually, they just give up and don't post anything. This happens because they're putting too much pressure on themselves. They think their contribution needs to be profound, funny, or perfectly articulated, But most comments and posts aren't perfect. They're just thoughts, quick reactions. And that's totally fine. But perfectionists can't accept that, so they stay silent. Another big factor is privacy concerns and digital footprints. Some people are very aware that everything they post online stays online. Comments can be screenshotted. Posts can be saved. Your username can be searched. So they choose to lurk because they don't want to leave evidence of their thoughts, opinions, or even their existence in certain spaces. They want to observe culture, learn, be entertained, but without creating a record of it. In a world where people have lost jobs, relationships, and reputations over old posts, this is actually a smart approach. But here's the most interesting part that most people don't realize. Lurking isn't actually passive. It feels passive because you're not doing anything visible, but psychologically, a lot is happening. Your brain is still processing information, forming opinions, making judgments, and learning. You're engaged, just not outwardly. Some researchers argue that lurkers are actually more thoughtful because they take in multiple perspectives before forming their own. They're not reacting impulsively, they're observing patterns. In fact, there's evidence that people who lurk more tend to have better critical thinking skills. They're less likely to get swept up in groupthink because they're not trying to fit in with the commenters. They're just watching from the outside. They see the full picture, the arguments, the trends, the contradictions, and this gives them a clearer, more objective view, but there's a downside. When you never participate, you also never get feedback. You never test your ideas. You never learn how to handle disagreement or criticism. You stay in your head, and that can create an echo chamber just as dangerous as any online bubble. You might think you understand something, but until you actually put your thoughts out there and see how people respond, you can't really know. Plus, communities need participants to survive. If everyone just lurked, there would be nothing to watch. No comments to read, no discussions to follow. The people who do participate, even in small ways, are the ones keeping these spaces alive. So while lurking is understandable and sometimes even smart, it also means you're benefiting from the effort of others without contributing back. So why do people watch but rarely participate? It's a mix of fear, diffusion of responsibility, imposter syndrome, comfort in observation, perfectionism, and privacy concerns. All of these are valid reasons. None of them make you weird or broken. But it's worth asking yourself, what are you missing out on by staying silent? Maybe nothing. Maybe you're perfectly happy observing. But maybe there's a part of you that wants to connect, share, or be heard, and fear is just getting in the way. The truth is, most people won't judge you as harshly as you think. Most comments get ignored anyway, not attacked. And even if someone disagrees with you, it's not the end of the world. You're allowed to be wrong. You're allowed to have half-formed thoughts. You're allowed to just say something without it being perfect. If this made you think, maybe drop a comment just to prove you can.